My phone rang when I was finishing up a project proposal. The screen showed Mom's name. When my parents called, there was typically some drama involving my younger brother Jake, so I was hesitant to respond. "Hello," I said, attempting to sound indifferent. "Hey, Tara. Good you picked up," Mom said in a cheerful tone. "Your birthday celebration has been planned by your father and me. Isn't it in 3 weeks? We have made the decision to host it at our home. Just close relatives and family. Wouldn't that be pleasant?" I blinked, startled. My birthday? Did they really remember? I said, "Oh, that's unexpected," with caution. I was actually thinking of celebrating at that new Italian restaurant downtown with some friends from work. "Nonsense," Mom interrupted. "Everyone has already been invited. Your relatives, aunts, and uncles will all be arriving. You should be thankful that we're handling everything." I recognized the familiar tone and sighed. When she employed that voice, there was no point in arguing. "Yes, Mom. I appreciate you setting things up." I hung up and looked at my phone in shock. My parents hadn't been this excited about my birthday in 30 years. My birthdays as a child were always tiny affairs, with a little cake and, if I was lucky, a new book. Jake, on the other hand, received pricey presents, bounce houses, and lavish parties with themes. My 16th birthday is still fresh in my mind. My parents had promised me driving lessons, which I had been eager for. Instead, they said they needed to conserve money and offered me a $20 bookstore gift card. They got Jake a used automobile for his 16th birthday 3 years later. Within 3 weeks, he totaled it, and they replaced it without receiving any complaints. I made a self-promise to never demand anything from them again when I moved out at the age of 18. I took on extra jobs, worked my way through college, and eventually established myself as a project manager at a marketing company. At least their obvious partiality had taught me to be independent. Why, then, did they feel the need to celebrate my birthday? There was a part of me that hoped they had finally come to terms with their long-standing unfairness. Perhaps they were attempting to put things right. It didn't seem possible, but maybe they had thought about how they treated me once they became 30. I returned to my computer and concentrated on the task at hand, ignoring thoughts of my family. If approved, this idea may result in a sizable commission, which would increase my already increasing savings. In the last year, I had closed 3 significant projects, and each one had resulted in big incentives. I purchased my own apartment 2 months ago using those savings as well as the funds I had been accumulating for years. No mortgage. Free and clear, all mine. It wasn't spectacular, just a simple 2-bedroom apartment in a good area, but it was the first place that ever felt like home. Jake texted me, and my phone buzzed. "I overheard your mother organizing your birthday. Sounds good." There was a trace of the sarcasm that pervaded most of our conversations, even in this straightforward message. Jake was 27 now, but he still had the entitlement of the golden child. 3 years ago, he'd announced he was opening a tattoo parlor. Our parents had been so proud, even though Jake had no business experience and only mediocre artistic talent. They'd helped him with the initial investment, of course. From his social media, you'd think he was extraordinarily successful. His Instagram was filled with photos of exotic vacations, expensive clothes, and beautiful women. Each post was carefully crafted to project the image of a prosperous entrepreneur. I suspected the reality was quite different. For the next 3 weeks, I threw myself into work, trying not to think too much about the upcoming birthday dinner. When Friday finally arrived, I left work early to get ready. I chose a simple blue dress, professional but festive, and drove to my parents' suburban home, the same house where I'd grown up. Cars lined the driveway and street. I recognized my Aunt Lisa's sedan and Uncle Mark's pickup truck. As I approached the door, I took a deep breath and rang the doorbell. Mom opened it with a bright smile. "There's our birthday girl. Come in, come in. Everyone's waiting." The living room was filled with relatives I hadn't seen in months, some in years. Aunt Lisa hugged me tightly. "Tara, it's been too long. You look wonderful." Uncle Mark patted my shoulder. Heard you bought yourself an apartment recently. No mortgage, huh? That's impressive. Thanks, I smiled, genuinely pleased by their recognition. It took years of saving, but it feels good to have a place that's completely mine. From across the room, I noticed Jake's face. He was slouched in an armchair, looking at his phone. When Uncle Mark mentioned my apartment, Jake glanced up with a grimace before returning to his screen. The evening progressed pleasantly. We ate Mom's lasagna, my favorite, which she rarely made, and the conversation flowed. Relatives asked about my job and congratulated me on my apartment. Several commented on how responsible I'd always been. Remember when Tara was only 12 and she started that little neighborhood dog walking business? Aunt Lisa reminisced. Always the entrepreneur. I smiled, enjoying the rare attention. Jake remained mostly silent, occasionally typing on his expensive new phone, a model I knew cost well over $1,000. Present time, Mom announced after dinner. Everyone gathered around as I opened gifts. Most were simple but thoughtful, a scarf from Aunt Lisa, a gift card from my cousins. When I got him my parents' gift, it was a large box wrapped in silver paper. This is from us and Jake, Mom said. Inside was a high-end coffee maker. Not the most personal gift, but certainly useful. Thank you, I said, genuinely appreciative. This is great. As the evening wound down, relatives began to leave. With each goodbye hug, I felt more relaxed. Maybe my parents really were trying to mend our relationship. This birthday hadn't been extravagant, but it had been normal. That alone felt like a gift. Once everyone had left, except for me, my parents, and Jake, I started gathering my things. Thanks for hosting, Mom. This was nice. Wait, Tara, Mom said, her expression suddenly serious. We need to talk to you about something important. Sit down, please. The shift in her tone made my stomach tighten, but I took a seat on the couch. Dad joined Mom on the love seat opposite me, while Jake lounged in a nearby chair, still absorbed in his phone. What's going on? I asked, my earlier contentment rapidly fading. Mom and Dad exchanged a look before Mom spoke. It's about Jake. He's having some financial difficulties. A few years ago, when Jake opened his tattoo parlor, he took out some loans for business development. Dad jumped in. The business hasn't been doing as well as expected, and now he's having trouble keeping up with the payments. I bit my tongue to keep from pointing out that Jake was rarely at his shop. His Instagram showed him at beach resorts, nightclubs, and on boats with different women almost weekly. Just last month, he posted photos from a 2-week trip to Bali, not exactly the behavior of someone struggling financially. How bad is it? I asked cautiously. Mom and Dad exchanged another look. His debts are around $200,000, Mom finally said. $200,000? I gasped. That was more than I'd paid for my entire apartment. How is that even possible? Jake finally looked up from his phone. Business costs add up, he said defensively. Equipment, rent, advertising. And why are you telling me this? I asked, though a sinking feeling in my stomach suggested I already knew the answer. Dad cleared his throat. We think you should help your brother pay off his debts. You should sell your apartment. That would cover Jake's debts and give him a fresh start. The room went silent. I stared at my parents, waiting for them to crack a smile, to let me know they were kidding. But their expressions remained serious. You want me to sell my apartment, which I saved for years to buy, to bail out Jake? My voice was quiet but strained. He's your brother, Dad said firmly. Family helps family. I looked at Jake, who had the decency to look slightly uncomfortable, though he was still texting someone, the ghost of a smile playing on his lips. This isn't happening, I muttered, standing up. I'm not selling my apartment. That's insane. Jake's head snapped up. What a terrible sister you are, he spat. I knew you wouldn't help. You can't be serious, I said, looking from Jake to my parents. He has a yacht, for God's sake. I've seen the pictures. He drives a Porsche. Why doesn't he sell those? Those are important for my image as a businessman, Jake said, suddenly animated. I can't sacrifice my professional appearance. How would that look to potential clients? And my home isn't important? I shot back. The home I worked for years to afford? You're being selfish, Mom said, her voice rising. Jake needs our help. As his older sister, you should support him. And what about all the support you've given him over me his entire life? The words burst out before I could stop them. The cars, the vacations, the business investment, that wasn't enough? That's different, Dad said dismissively. He's had different needs than you. Different needs? I echoed in disbelief. When I needed braces, you told me we couldn't afford them. 6 months later, Jake got an expensive gaming system for Christmas. When I needed help with college tuition, you said I should take out loans. But when Jake wanted to start a tattoo parlor with zero experience, you handed him thousands. Stop exaggerating, Mom snapped. We've always treated you both fairly. I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself. I'm not selling my apartment. End of discussion. Mom's face hardened. She stood up, walked to the coffee table, and grabbed the box containing the coffee maker they'd given me earlier. Then you don't deserve gifts from us, she said coldly, pulling the box away. I stared at her in shock. Even for her, this was cruel. I think you should leave, Dad said, standing beside Mom. If you can't support your brother in his time of need, you don't deserve to be part of this family. You don't deserve to be our daughter, Mom added, her voice ice. Jake watched this exchange with a smug expression that made my blood boil. Fine, I said, grabbing my purse and jacket. I'm going home to the apartment I earned, that I own, and that I am absolutely not selling. Get out, Mom hissed. Just get out. I walked to the door with as much dignity as I could muster. None of them followed me as I stepped outside. I heard the door slam behind me. The drive home was a blur. My phone kept buzzing with texts, but I ignored them until I was safely inside my apartment. When I finally looked, I wished I hadn't. Mom, you ungrateful girl. After everything we've done for you. Dad, your selfishness is disappointing. Think about what matters more, your brother's future or your own grade. Jake had sent the most hurtful messages. Have fun being alone in your precious apartment. Maybe you can cuddle with your mortgage papers, since no man would want to live with such a selfish girl. Must be nice being so ugly inside. At least it matches your outside. You'll die alone in that apartment. Congrats on the great investment. I threw my phone onto the couch and burst into tears. Happy birthday to me. After a good cry, I dragged myself to the bathroom and splashed cold water on my face. In the mirror, my eyes were red and puffy, but as I stared at my reflection, a strange calm began to replace my hurt. What had I really lost tonight? Parents who had never prioritized me? A brother who only saw me as a potential ATM? Some family. I made myself a cup of tea and sat at my kitchen table, thinking. For the past year, I've been sending my parents $1,200 every month, $700 for the loan on their new car. The old one had finally died last year, and $500 for household bills. They'd never asked for this help. I'd offered it because I thought that's what family did for each other. I opened my banking app and navigated to the recurring transfer section. With 2 clicks, I canceled both monthly payments. It felt both terrifying and liberating. Then I opened my laptop and began typing an email to my parents. Mom and Dad, since you've made it clear that you don't consider me your daughter anymore, I won't continue to financially support strangers. The monthly transfers for your car loan and household bills have been canceled effective immediately. If Jake's financial future is so important to you, perhaps you can redirect the $1,200 per month you'll now be responsible for toward his debts instead. Please don't contact me again. Tara. I hit send before I could change my mind. Then I turned off my phone, took a long hot shower, and went to bed. Tomorrow is Saturday, thankfully. I didn't think I could face work after tonight. I switched on my phone the next morning, and it immediately began buzzing with notifications, 53 missed calls, and dozens of text messages, mostly from my parents and Jake. I scrolled through them with a detached curiosity. Mom, how dare you cancel those payments without discussing it first? Call me immediately. Dad, your mother is very upset. What you've done is incredibly cruel. Jake, nice job screwing over Mom and Dad to get back at me. Real mature. The messages grew increasingly frantic and angry. The latest one, sent just 30 minutes ago, was from Mom. We need to talk. Call me now. As if on cue, my phone rang with her number. After a moment's hesitation, I answered. How could you do this to us? She demanded without even a hello. Do what? I asked calmly. Stop supporting people who don't consider me family? Seems reasonable to me. You had no right. Actually, I had every right. It's my money. There was a pause, then Mom's voice softened into the manipulative tone I knew well. Tara, honey, we were upset last night. Things were said in the heat of the moment. Why don't you come over today so we can discuss this like adults? No, I said firmly. I'm not coming over, and I'm not changing my mind about the payments or my apartment. Her voice cracked. We can't manage without that money, Tara. The car payment alone. You should have thought about that before you demanded I sell my home and called me names, I replied. I'm done being your backup plan. Goodbye, Mom. I hung up and immediately blocked their numbers, then did the same for their email addresses and social media accounts. Maybe it was petty, but that felt necessary for my mental health. The following week was surprisingly peaceful. Without the constant drain of worrying about my family, I found myself more focused at work and sleeping better at night. I closed another project ahead of schedule, earning praise from my boss and securing a new client that everyone had been trying to land for months. My peaceful bubble burst on Friday afternoon when my Aunt Lisa showed up at my apartment unannounced. Tara, I hope you don't mind me dropping by, she said when I opened the door. I have news for you. I busied myself in the kitchen while Aunt Lisa settled on my couch. When I returned with 2 glasses, she got straight to the point. Your parents have been telling everyone a very interesting story, she said. According to them, you've cut them off financially because they didn't give you an expensive enough birthday present. I nearly choked on my water. What? There's more, Aunt Lisa continued. Your mother claims you demanded they sign over their house to you or you'd stop helping them with bills. I sighed and told her everything, the birthday dinner, Jake's stunts, my parents' demand that I sell my apartment, and the cruel messages afterward. I have the texts, I added, pulling out my phone and showing her the vicious messages from my family. They called me ugly, said I'd die alone, that I didn't deserve to be their daughter, all because I wouldn't sell my home to bail Jake out. Aunt Lisa's face darkened as she scrolled through the messages. This is disgusting, she muttered. And now they're playing the victims. Typical. I've watched how they've treated you compared to Jake for 30 years. When you were 10 and won that school science fair, your mother barely acknowledged it. 2 years later, Jake built that mediocre volcano that didn't even erupt properly, and they threw him a celebration dinner. Her words brought back a flood of memories I'd tried to suppress, the time Jake crashed the family car and got a new one, while I had to save for years to buy my first used vehicle, the Christmas I received socks while Jake got the latest gaming console. After Aunt Lisa left, promising to set the record straight with other relatives, I felt both validated and exhausted. For the first time, someone in my family had acknowledged the unfair treatment I'd endured all my life. The following Wednesday, I was at my desk reviewing a client proposal when my office phone rang. Miss Mitchell, it was the security guard from the lobby. There's a couple here insisting they need to see you. They say they're your parents. My heart raced. I don't want to see them, Sam. Please don't let them up. No problem. Should I ask them to leave the premises? Yes, please. But I hesitated, then sighed. Tell them I'll come down to the lobby. I'll speak to them there for 5 minutes, but that's it. I took the elevator down, mentally preparing myself. When the doors opened, I saw my parents standing by the security desk. Mom's eyes were red and Dad looked haggard. You have 5 minutes, I said coldly, leading them to a corner of the lobby away from curious ears. This has gone far enough, Dad began. Your aunt has been telling everyone your version of events, and now the whole family is treating us like we're monsters. My version? I laughed bitterly. You mean the truth? You're exaggerating everything, Mom, I hissed. We were just asking for your help, and you've turned it into this character assassination. I showed Aunt Lisa the messages you sent me, I replied calmly. Your exact words, calling me ugly, saying I'd die alone, was that an exaggeration? They exchanged uncomfortable glances. We were upset, Dad muttered. People say things they don't mean when they're upset. The way I see it, you finally said what you've always thought of me. Mom's face contorted with anger. This isn't about ancient history, Tara. This is about now. Your brother needs help, and instead of supporting him, you've destroyed our reputation with the family. You destroyed your own reputation by lying about me, I countered, and by treating me like garbage my entire life. That's not true, Mom protested. We've always loved you the same as Jake. The blatant lie made me laugh. Sure, Mom. That's why Jake got a car at 16 while I got a gift card. That's why you paid for his business, but told me to take out loans for college. You've always been independent, Dad said weakly. Jake needs more support. Jake needs to grow up and face the consequences of his actions, I said. And so do you. Mom's face hardened. Fine. If that's how you want to play this, we'll make your life hell. We'll call you from different numbers, email you from new accounts, show up where you work. Sarah, Dad warned, glancing nervously at the security guard who was watching us closely. No, Bill. I'm done playing nice, Mom continued, her voice rising. We'll come to her home. We'll contact her friends. We won't stop until she helps Jake and starts supporting us again. I was tired of their arrogance, their entitlement, their constant emotional manipulation. They really thought they could bully me into giving up everything I'd worked for. I pulled out my phone and dialed a number. Who are you calling? Dad demanded. Mark Donovan, I replied calmly. Our corporate attorney. I've already discussed my family situation with him. Mom's face went pale. You're calling a lawyer on your own parents? Hello, Mark, I said into the phone. It's Tara Mitchell. Remember that family harassment situation I mentioned? They're here at my office right now, threatening me. Could you come down to the lobby? I paused, listening. Thanks, I appreciate it. I ended the call and looked at my parents. He'll be here in 2 minutes. We wouldn't actually, Mom began, but fell silent as a well-dressed man in his 50s approached us. Tara, he nodded to me, then turned to my parents. Mr. and Mrs. Mitchell, I'm Mark Donovan, corporate counsel for this company and a personal friend of your daughter's. This is a family matter, Dad said stiffly. It doesn't concern you. Actually, it does, Mark replied. Tara has already shown me the threatening messages you've sent her. Now you've come to her workplace to continue that harassment. Let me be very clear, if you continue to contact Tara against her wishes by phone, email, in person, or through third parties, we will pursue a restraining order and, if necessary, criminal charges. You wouldn't, Mom whispered, looking at me. Try me, I replied steadily. I'm done being your punching bag. All communication from this point should go through me, Mark continued, handing them each his business card. Have a good day. My parents stood frozen for a moment, then turned and walked out without another word. Through the glass doors, I watched them get into their car, not the new one they'd bought with my help, but an older model I didn't recognize. You okay? Mark asked after they had driven away. Yeah, I said, surprised to find I meant it. I think I am. After the confrontation at my office, my parents never bothered me again. The legal warning from Mark had worked like a charm, and my life became wonderfully peaceful. No more drama, no more demands, no more guilt trips. One Saturday morning, Aunt Lisa called me for our weekly chat. Thought you'd want to know, she said after we caught up on normal things. The bank repossessed your parents' car last week. They couldn't keep up with the payments without your help. I see, I said, feeling a twinge of something, not quite guilt, more like acknowledgement. And Jake had to sell his Porsche and that ridiculous shop of his, she continued. Still didn't cover all his debts, but it made a dent. He's moved back in with your parents now. Is he still looking for work? I asked. Actually, yes. He's got interviews lined up at a few places downtown. Nothing fancy, just regular jobs. I smiled to myself. Good. A normal job with regular hours might be exactly what he needs. After we hung up, I grabbed my camera, a recent purchase that had quickly become my passion, and headed to the city park. Photography had become my weekend escape, a way to see beauty in the world around me. My phone buzzed with a text from my friend Rachel, confirming our plans for a weekend trip to the coast next month. I'd made more time for friendships and travel lately, no longer constrained by the obligation to solve my family's financial problems. As I framed a shot of an elderly couple feeding ducks by the pond, I felt a sense of contentment wash over me. My life was mine now, shaped by my choices, my values, my desires. For the first time in 30 years, I was truly free.